Hello and welcome to the first in the series of videos looking at the Eldar fleet in Battlefleet Gothic Armada. So just to start with before we kick into it, for those people who have been waiting for me to do this, I'm sorry it's taken so long. Unfortunately my computer had a number of issues and it's taken a while for me to get it all up and working properly again. But it's done and we are good to go with the rest of these tutorials. So let's kick on. So as per usual, we'll start by looking at the transport ship. Fairly standard for a transport ship, 200 hull. So 0 shield for Eldar, they don't have shields, they have hollow fields which we'll talk about in a second, so that's going to read 0 for all of them. Speed 138. So not only is this slow, it's extremely slow for an Eldar ship, which actually can be a bit of a pain as the rest of your ships will readily overtake it, whereas with most other races it's not too hard to keep up with them. With Eldar you're going to be miles ahead of them. 20-degree rotation, 5,000 detection, 50 troop value, 3 defensive turrets, and 25 armor all round. Again, that armor profile is the same for all Eldar. So yeah, no shields, the lowest armor. Don't worry, when you see what the hollow fields can do, you'll understand why. So in terms of weaponry, 3 light prow star cannons. Now, as per usual for a transport ship, these things aren't really going to be getting into combat. But as you can see, they can do, if all hit, 3 damage per second essentially. Now, yeah, so you'll see there the Eldar accuracy. When we get across here to the traits, you'll see it is actually quite good. 85%, 70%, 55%, and then 40%. So as you can see, they do actually hit quite well. And you will probably see it when we get into the tutorial tactics and strategies where you'll actually see them on the field. You'll actually see a little bit of tracking on the star cannon shots. Right. Disciplined. So these guys pretty much don't run. You can reduce pretty much all of them to 0. So, yeah. But they are fragile. So this is the big thing with Eldar ships. 100% extra chance of critical damage from enemy weaponry. Now you can reduce this with an upgrade and you will see it on like all of my ships. But yeah, also ramming damage, 50% less ramming damage. You essentially don't want to be ramming with Eldar, as you're more likely to do more damage to you than you are to the enemy. Right, now the solar sails. This is a nice interesting thing for Eldar. So this is both what gives them their all-ahead full maneuver, which in their case is a very quick boost for a very short time with a relatively quick cooldown that again can be improved through upgrades. Now, as it says there though, each ship has 2 to 4 sails, and you can visually see them. It's these things here. So you can see the transport ship comes with 2. Now, you actually have to destroy all of them with engine critical damage hits for the full effect. So they don't just have 1 engine damage and that's it, they're done. They have that 2 to 4 depending on how many sails they have. So there are some other issues there though. As you can see, it reduces their hollow field efficiency by 10 points. And it does still impede the ship speed by up to 50%. Essentially, it's a percentage based off the number of sails. If they have 2 sails, yes, it'll be 50%. If they have 4 sails, it'll actually only be 25%. So, speaking of the hollow fields, mentioned a couple of times already, how do they work? So essentially, the faster you're going, the better. So, as it says there, they decrease if you're under 50% of your max speed. So this is where trying to take out their engines can be good, but as you've seen, you've got to take out multiple solar sails to get that full effect. Hollow fields increase if so above 90% of your max speed, and they start going up, which isn't particularly hard. If you keep using your boost, you can get there pretty quickly. So essentially at maximum speed, what does it do? As you can see there, 80% chance of lance absorption. Pretty much lance weapons against Eldar are useless. I mean, yes, they're still going to hit 1 out of 5, but apart from Chaos, very few factions run enough lance weaponry for that to actually mean anything. So, yeah. And an accuracy reduction for the rest of your weaponry of 50%. So only half of your shots are going to hit, roughly, when shooting at Eldar. This obviously is why they can afford to have pretty much no armor, and this does just replace their shields. Now, as per usual though, taking out their generator won't actually get rid of their hollow fields entirely, but it will reduce it by half, and then on top of that, any damage you might manage to do to their speed. Yeah, essentially because they don't have shields, they're just given this void species trait. And then escort, yep. So transports and escort ships, so the usual. They're harder to hit, and they're more vulnerable to area of effect damage. Orders, the standards, reload, lock on, brace for impact, running silent, and Bonesong, which is their repair. Right, so all the fairly standard stuff there. Now, let's get into proper escort ships. So, the Hemlock destroyer. So, the Hemlock here. 2 solar sails. Massive ass weapon sticking out the front of it. We'll get to that in a second. 100 hull. 375 speed. 50 degree per second rotation. So you can already start to see the speed bonus that Eldar have over the other races. 5,000 detection. 50 troop value. 3 defensive turrets. And the 25 all-round armor. So again, 3 light prow star cannons. Now this big ass weapon, the prow pulsar. So pulsars is what Eldar have instead of lances. So it has a lot of your typical lance effects. Ship's armor is always counted as 25%. It's got the heavy damage. It's that focus fire one though. This is what makes them different. So as you can see there, it deals damage every second over 3 seconds to the first ship ahead. So these do not fire like normal lances. So when it says number of attacks, it essentially just means that 1 second every 3 seconds. But it is 15 damage per second, so that's a potential for up to 45 damage. Decent reload time. Range, yeah, fairly standard. And the same with the crit. Now it does say angle of fire front. That's because these do just shoot in a straight line. So it's wherever you're pointing. Now you will actually see it a little bit differently. This is actually how it's done. So it actually needs to be fired a bit more like a torpedo as opposed to a normal lance weapon. It won't just fire. And it is on auto by default. Right, accuracy, discipline, look, it's all the same stuff. That's why we love them. Makes it easy to get through this, and all the same orders. Right, and our first frigate, the Aconite. So again, as you can see there, we actually have 2 solar sails, and you'll see that this just comes with a buttload of star cannons. Other than that, 200 hull integrity, 338 speed, 50 degree rotation. It'd have a base detection of 5,000. Troop value 50, 6 defensive turrets, and the 25 armor. So yeah, essentially just a buttload of star cannons. 15 of them firing every 3 seconds for 1 damage each. I mean, that really can add up very, very quickly. I actually like Eldar star cannons, I have to say. They are quite effective. Right, so our second destroyer, the Nightshade. So you see here, the Nightshade has 3 solar sails. 100 hull integrity, 375 speed, 50 degree rotation, the 5000 detection, troop value 50, 3 defensive turrets, and the 25 armor all round. So we have 3 star cannons, and then this one is our first one with a torpedo launcher. Standard torps. Nothing different about Eldar torps over anything else. They do a lot of damage with an equivalent amount of reload time, have a high crit chance, but have that whole problem of firing in a straight line and being able to shoot them down. So, that's that, all the same. Right, and the frigate Hellebore. So as you see here, quite an interesting ship. Comes with pretty much all 3 weapons. 200 hull, 338 speed, 45 degree rotation, 5000 detection, 50 troop value, 6 defensive turrets, and the 25 all-round armor. So, torps, a prow pulsar, and now we just have a single prow star cannon. So instead of a couple of lights, it just gives it one of the light cruiser size. So as you can see, it's now doing 3 damage with a 2-second reload. So these actually do potentially put out quite a large amount of damage very, very, very quickly. Again, all the same traits, all the same orders. Now, on to our actual light cruisers. So you essentially have a choice of 2, the Solaris and the Aurora. So, one point of difference between them. What is the actual difference? Well, it's your weaponry loadout. So as you can see there, for our stats, we have 400 hull, 300 speed, 40 degree rotation, 5000 detection, 50 troop value, 9 defensive turrets, and 25 all-round armor. So the weapon loadout. Well, essentially, the Aurora comes with torps, the Solaris comes with launch bays. Eldar have very, very, very good squadrons. In fact, the little write-up on them before you select them suggests that they have the best in-game. I'm not sure that's entirely true now that the tower out. Certainly, at least I would argue that the tower have the better bombers. But, as you can see there, Ordnance does have a dodge for Eldar, so they have a 30% chance to ignore destruction. So, I also have a personal preference for Ordnance, even if it wasn't for them being the best. Ordnance steers onto ships. I have to try and line up torps. And as you'll see, because Eldar are extremely micro heavy, you really want to be taking as much of it out as possible. Now the other difference is that the Solaris comes with 6 prow star cannons, which as you can see with a 2-second cooldown and 3 damage each, 6 of them is going to start adding up. That's potentially, if all of them hit, 18 damage every 2 seconds. Whereas the Aurora comes with 2 prow pulsars. Essentially, the thing with the Aurora is you have to be able to keep it sitting, facing an enemy perfectly to get its weapons on. And then that 20-second cooldown on that prow pulsar, trust me, it feels like forever. You're essentially just sitting there, not doing damage. I mean, even for that potential 45 damage, I mean, at 18 damage every 2 seconds, even if both of these hit, that's 90 damage, potentially, if I can keep it on target, with a 20-second reload. I mean, in that time I can get off 10 of these, that's 180 damage. Yeah, you can kind of see why I might prefer the star cannons. especially as they're more likely to actually hit my target. Anyhow, obviously personal preferences there. So that's our 2 frigates, and they both more or less look the same. Obviously slightly different weapon layout. So our cruisers, so again a quick look, they look the same, just with that slightly different weapon loadout, as you'll see, and with these it's even less noticeable. So you essentially get Shadow Kronos pattern and the Shadow, and quite literally the only difference here is torps versus ordnance, and you're going to see this now being a thing. Unlike the light cruisers, which have completely 2 separate sets of weaponry, all the bigger ships, it's star cannons, same amount, same type, and then it's just essentially down to whether you want torps or ordnance. And like I said, for me, ordnance wins hands down. So let's have a look at the rest of our stats here. 600 hull, 262 speed, a 35-degree rotation. That would be 35 because we're looking at it there, not with my upgrades on it. 5,000 detection, 50 troop value, 12 defensive turrets, and 25 armor all round. So you will see that I've pretty much given all my ships the same upgrades. That's because the layout is pretty much the same on all of them. Now, what do we pick up extra down in orders? Nothing really. Enter the webway. Finally, this is valid as we're finally playing Eldar. And our boarding action and lightning strike. So Eldar have the strongest ordnance and pretty much the weakest troops. Again, I'd argue that that may not be true now that Tower in. Although Tower boarding actions are fairly decent. Or at least they can be once they're upgraded. But these guys, look, it's all pretty standard. You'll get your 3 assault actions from boarding. Can only be done in that 2,500 range on your broadsides, and can do critical damage, which is good. And then we've got our lightning strike. It's only going to end up being 1 assault action, can only do temporary damage, and requires your the shields of the enemy to be down. Right. Battle cruisers. So 3 solar sails, and you can really start to see the weapons coming here. So we've got the Eclipse Vol pattern and the Eclipse. As you can see, star cannons, prow pulsars, torps or ordnance. So 800 hull, 262 speed, 35-degree rotation, 5,000 detection, 50 troop value, 15 defensive turrets, and that 25 all-round armor. So nothing different about these prow pulsars. They don't really do anything extra as we go up in the size of the ships. You just get more of them on the ship. And finally, the battleship. So here we actually have our full 4 solar sails. And we only get the one, the Voidstalker. 1,000 hull, 225 speed, 30-degree rotation, 5,000 detection, a 50 troop value, 18 turrets, and 25 defensive armor. Look, 4 launch bays is a lot. I have seen, well, this alone can take out any escort ship, and it, along with another smaller ordnance, usually just a light cruiser is enough. You don't even need a battle cruiser or cruiser amount, can take out some of the lower hull integrity light cruisers out there like Space Marines and Tau, and certainly a battleship with a battle cruiser or cruiser can take out most of the others, Orcs being the exception because they run such high hull. But even then, along with whatever your weapons are doing, you should be able to take out those frigates fairly, those light cruisers fairly quickly. It is something to see, I can tell you. Alright, we got heavy prow star cannons on this puppy. So 4 damage every 2 seconds with a 9,000 range. I mean, it just doesn't get better. And this does get the 4 heavy prow pulsars. Yep, it adds 3,000 to the range. That's it. You're still doing the same damage. I'm not the biggest fan of the pulsars. I'd actually prefer lancers. But in saying that, if you get all 4 of these hitting a target, they do tend to chew through it a bit. As long as the shields aren't up. Although, they'll get rid of the shields fairly quickly as well. Right. So, that is the Eldar vessels. I will be doing the next video on the upgrade skills, favors and crew. Please join us then, and I hope you enjoyed this.